The NFL talks a big game when it comes to competitive balance, but every year the schedule proves that it's more of a myth than it is a reality. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I am your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday, your friend, your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders. Doing so for WUSA9.com, your local CBS affiliate, and also doing it for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. I want to thank you for coming through for today's episode. Everydayers, those of you who come through every single day, I want to thank you for coming through today as well as every other day that you're able to make it through. If you're not already subscribed for free on YouTube or where you're listening to this episode, please do so now. And if you're new to the show, thank you for finding us. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you enjoy it enough that you come back, because Locked On Commanders is a daily podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Today is Mailbag Day. Mailbag Wednesday. We're going to talk about a former second round draft pick. Well, he's a second round draft pick because he's always been drafted in the second round, but a second round draft pick who's become available. It's got some Adam Peters connection. We're going to talk about competitive balance, of course, but we are going to start off with a little bit of more schedule speculation, projection conversation as we hit our mailbag episode. And full disclosure here, so this is a little bit of a rapid turnaround from our last episode. We went live about 15 hours ago, doing this one this morning because, of course, Wednesday night we've got the official schedule review. I do plan on going live at 8 p.m. Eastern to react in real time to the NFL schedule going official. And I put it that way, of course, because there will be leaks, there will be reports, there will be all kinds of things coming out. And by the time 8 p.m. rolls around, we typically pretty much know what the schedule is going to be. But I am going to wait until 8 p.m. until it's officially official to talk about everything. So we're going to break that down. So if you're interested, come back through at 8 p.m. Eastern time live if you can. If you can't make it live, of course, the video will live forever on YouTube and the audio will be available shortly after we conclude the live broadcast, as always. So let's get to this mailbag episode. And we're going to start off with a scheduling question. Seth comes through and says, who do you most want to see the Commanders play in week 1? And who do you think are the most realistic candidates? So the most realistic candidates are all the teams, because the NFL is bound to do pretty much whatever they want. And the thing about it that I think that we all, I don't want to say lose sight of, but don't care. I would just say we don't care about it, right? Because honestly, do you care about the other 31 fan bases in the NFL? Not really. Maybe if you got a close friend or a family member who's a fan of another team, you care about like their happiness a little bit, but Commanders fans care about the Commanders schedule. Commanders media, we care about the Commanders schedule, right? It's not a bad thing. It's just the fact of the matter. So I have some ideal candidates to open the season against the Washington Commanders. We got some things that I project, but again, the NFL knows that every single week there's going to be fan bases disappointed in the matchup. There's going to be fans that love the matchup. There's going to be a mix across the board, and what they're trying to do is make it to where there's enough intrigue nationwide every single week that people want to continue tuning in, right? So there's bound to be some disappointments in week 1. Unfortunately, it looks like the Commanders might be one of those teams, because Art Stapleton of USA Today, at least he's the first that I saw, is reporting that the New York Giants are going to open up the season on the road against the Washington Commanders, which of course then means the Washington Commanders are going to open up at home, which is good. And that's the part that I think Commanders fans will probably enjoy. You get to start off the year in Northwest Stadium. If you're local or if you can make it out, you get to see a home game. It's a divisional game. Outside of that, that's pretty much where the intrigue stops, right? Like Russell Wilson versus Jayden Daniels, not all that sexy of a matchup. The Giants aren't exactly the sexiest team. I mean, Malik Neighbors, Jayden Daniels friendship, like that's cool. You know what I mean? Malik Neighbors versus Marshawn Lattimore, like maybe you'll get up for that, or maybe you get to see Trey Amos matched up against them here and there. Malik also plays in the slot, so Mikey Sainristil if he ends up in the slot, right? So there's a little bit of intrigue there, but as far as week 1 opponents goes, if that report ends up being confirmed later on today and when the official schedule, or when the schedule goes officially official, I've already got some text messages from Locked On Commanders insiders who aren't exactly thrilled with the idea. So what were some other options, or what are some other options? Because again, it's not officially official, right? I broke down 3 options for a home opener, 3 options for an away opener. Away, as I mentioned before, at Atlanta Falcons, it's not a super long trip, but it's a good trip to get out of the way. Again, the Washington Commanders have an additional away game this year, 9 away games this year versus 8 home games, because this is just the year that they have the extra away game. Next year, they'll have 9 home games, right, and so on and so forth. But the Atlanta Falcons, it's a good trip. It's an East Coast trip, same time zone, all that stuff. You're not worried about fatigue anyway. So that's the one I kind of projected as a potential week 1 road trip already. But 2 other options at Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know what the rumored leaks are. To be honest, guys, I'm not a big leak follower because none of the leaks are substantiated until the schedule comes out, just stuff like that. Now, there are some guys, again, Art Stapleton, USA Today, he is a Giants beat reporter. And so he's got a little bit more on the line. Like if he reports something and he's wrong and there's a little bit more of a risk to it than some of these websites or some of these social media accounts that can say, hey, I'm hearing this. And if they're wrong, it's, oh, well, no harm, no foul, right? So believe that a little bit more. But at Kansas City Chiefs would be intriguing. Patrick Mahomes, Jayden Daniels, week 1. I mean, that's a sexy lineup for the NFL to take advantage of if they wanted to do that. At Los Angeles, I think that the biggest draw for the Commanders to go to LA to start the season against the Chargers would have been, because obviously the Chargers are in Brazil, but either way, you're talking about your potentially longest. Now, again, they're going to Spain, so that's actually going to be your longest. I don't know the mileage difference between Brazil and Spain, to be fully honest, but Los Angeles Chargers, whether it's week 1 in Brazil or whether it would have been Los Angeles itself going to the West Coast, one of, if not your longest road trip of the season, knock that out in week 1, right? So Chargers would have been a potential attractive option had it been available. And again, I guess we don't know fully that it's not week 1 in Brazil, but we're pretty sure that's not week 1 in Brazil, right? Home game options. This is where we get a little bit more specific. I saw an NFL.com analyst actually throw out there that they wanted to see Caleb Williams versus Jayden Daniels part 2, Chicago Bears at Washington Commanders, week 1, Sunday Night Football. Yeah, give me that. You know what I mean? You've got Caleb versus Jayden. You've got obviously the Hail Mary, the moment of the year in the NFL last year that's going to get replayed and talked about and all that stuff. You've got, again, Jayden Daniels coming in. This time he'd be healthy, right? Remember last time he was coming off that rib injury that he suffered against Carolina Panthers. Caleb Williams was not having the greatest season behind a suspect offensive line, a head coach that was about 8 or 9 weeks from being fired and all that stuff. And so you'd love to see that. Tyreek Stevenson not going to make the same mistake that he made in that game again. So it would be a lot of intrigue there. And then, of course, you've got the Ben Johnson hire by the Chicago Bears, former Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. His team just turned the ball over 5 times. Like the last time he saw the Commanders, they turned the ball over 5 times on offense and lost the divisional round as number 1 seed in the NFC playoff race. So, again, just lots of good stuff there for that to be an option if it's still potentially, well, it's not on the table. The schedule is set. But if it's not the Giants, that would be a good option. Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. I mean, again, you've got the playoff rematch. Granted, Ben Johnson's not there. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator from last year, is no longer there. He's now the head coach of the New York Jets. But you still have the Lions. You still got the main players, Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, those guys, obviously head coach Dan Campbell. Monday Night Football, another prime timer. That would be amazing. And then another one that's maybe not as high on the Richter scale, at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, that's an intriguing team, right? Pete Carroll, former head coach, Seattle Seahawks. Dan Quinn worked on his staff, so there's that connection there. He's coming back to the NFL, coming back to coaching. Geno Smith, former Seahawks quarterback, is now in Vegas. You got Max Crosby that I know a lot of Commanders fans were coveting when there was talks that maybe Max Crosby could be shipped out and all that stuff. So you've got some interesting stuff there. Ashton Genty, the top back drafted in this year's NFL draft against a very suspect run defense in Washington, is, this is their opportunity to go up against a back that, probably not going to be the rushing leader this year, but a lot of people expect Ashton Genty to be pretty good in the NFL. So that would be an interesting matchup just in general outside the division of the non-divisional, non-major storyline games. I think that would have been an interesting one. So again, we'll see if it is in fact the Giants at the Commanders as rumored or as reported by Art Stapleton of USA Today. Another rumor going around out there that's unsubstantiated, unconfirmed. Dallas Cowboys visiting the Commanders Christmas Day. Again, not confirmed, but it is being floated out there. That's interesting because December 20th, the Saturday before Christmas, the Washington Commanders are confirmed to be hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. That would mean 5 days later they would play the Cowboys still at home, which if we get to be home for Christmas, I'm all about that. Certainly, we had speculated before maybe the Green Bay Packers just using some of history's trends, but again, the NFL always switching things up on us, which is a good thing. You don't want to just have everything be predictable every season. So if that's the case, then you've got 3 divisional matchups: Giants at Commanders week 1, Cowboys at Commanders week 17, Eagles at Commanders week 16. That's 3 of your home games that you've already got pretty much locked in. Again, 2 of those are reports. 1 of them is confirmed. The only one confirmed, Eagles at Commanders week 16, December 20th, and then week 11 in Spain, and it's Miami Dolphins. So a lot of rumors coming out again. I'm not going to keep track of all of them because they're rumors until they're not, and we'll talk about that 8 o'clock tonight live about the actual official schedule, and we'll react to everything that has been made official. Coming up next, we're going to continue this mailbag episode talking about a little bit more about scheduling, but a little bit less specific about the opponents and more just about the theory of scheduling and even playing field for all NFL teams. Is it a myth or is it fact? It's myth, and we're going to tell you why. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Michael Porter Jr. talking to you, buddy. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game for a fan. Before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I told you on yesterday's episode that I placed a wager on the Denver Nuggets to win the whole thing, and if they do it, I'm going to make over $1,000. That would be great. That opportunity took a big hit when they lost Game 5 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Denver Nuggets are now plus 980 underdogs to win that series, and they're now plus 2,900 underdogs to win the NBA championship. So if you believe that the Denver Nuggets can pull this off, then by all means, go join me in that pool, and perhaps we will make some money. If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up, whether you want to jump on my Nuggets bandwagon or somebody else's. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets, so make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing now with today's episode of Locked On Commanders, Mailbag Wednesday, and we're going to start off this second segment with a mailbag question from Bill. A little bit of an opinion, but also a question, so we're going to go with it. So Bill says, if even playing field, quote unquote, is the goal from the NFL, I see every year filled with failures to achieve said goal. If listing unfair issues on scheduling, when listing unfair scheduling issues, I see the following. 1, playing a team after a bye week, not fair. 2, playing an away game after playing a Monday night game, not fair. Number 3, playing an away game on Thursday night or a Thursday holiday. Conversely, the opposite is also a benefit that unlevels the playing field. Playing a team after your own bye, playing an opponent at home after the opponent had a Monday night game, playing an opponent after your last game was on Thursday. Basically, any schedule that repeatedly gives one team more or less rest or preparation days can be seen as changing how level the playing field is. I wonder if there's a formula to dictate how fair or unfair a schedule is. So it's a great topic, a great question. And I think that, on a very basic level, I think that we can potentially all agree that, especially in today's NFL with, the different days that all the games are going to be, played on and everything else, it's kind of impossible to make it, especially every single week, a completely fair game. Like, there's going to be weeks where you played Monday night, the other team plays Sunday early afternoon, and that just kind of is what it is. You know what I mean? Now, the theory of competitive balance, player safety, I think where competitive balance, where the NFL does it the best, is compensatory picks and draft order. I don't understand this NBA lottery thing of trying to avoid tanking and all that stuff. I think the truth of the matter in the NBA is you have a very top-heavy game where the best in the league are the best, and then there's a wide berth, and then there's everybody else that's just average. So it's a little bit different. In the NFL, because it is the ultimate team sport, you have the best player in the game today on your NFL team, and if the rest of your team is all scrubs, you're not going to make the postseason. Whereas in the NBA, if you have the best player in the league today, which that's up for debate on who that player is, you're probably going to at least make the playoffs. Even if you don't have any other great players, you're at least going to make the postseason, right? So anyway, we're not here to discuss NBA versus NFL, but I think the NFL does a really good job of competitive balance in that light of keeping it to where we see every year teams go from the bottom of their division to the top of their division, or they go from missing the playoffs to making the playoffs, right? So competitive balance there is good. Competitive balancing in the scheduling, not so much. And I think that's a very fair observation. I think it's related directly to the fact that games aren't just played on Sundays. If every game was played on Sunday, then it's okay. The only disadvantage you might have is your travel time and your miles traveled, which is just that's just gonna be a thing, right? You have to get rid of that. Where I have a problem with the NFL, and I understand, it's about making money, is the player safety aspect of it, right? You play on December 20th, you play on December 25th, you're not caring about NFL player safety. You're talking about playing Sunday, you play on Thursday, you're not taking account player safety, right? So again, those are just some things that are quite honest and clearly, right? The NFL is putting their mission first. That's basically the best way I can tell it to you. Their mission, the NFL's mission, is to make money. At the end of the day, the NFL is an entertainment business. So that is what they see as their first mission. Like it or hate it, most of us hate it, but like it or not, that is their first mission. They're placing their mission first. And I can tell you right now, I go back to my military roots, and that's one of the things we always do. Put the mission first. Sometimes to do the mission first, you have to do things or put people in situations that maybe aren't comfortable, maybe they don't like, or maybe aren't the best. You try to balance the both out as best as possible. I think the NFL maybe falls short of trying to balance it out as best as possible for their players and their family members, but that is clearly what the NFL is doing, placing the mission first. So I can't really tell you how to combat that because I don't think there's a way to do it. So we'll get to the next part, which is, can you measure just how slanted or lopsided one schedule is compared to another? And yeah, you actually can. They've actually got a lot of those things. So Sharp Football Analysis is probably one of my favorite sites. They include analysis of miles and time zones, right? Like, for example, in 2024, the Los Angeles Chargers traveled 26,803 miles, more than any other NFL team in the season. They traveled through 36 different time zones. It's a lot of time changes. Washington actually traveled the least, which I appreciated as a selfish person. Only 10,550 miles last year, 18 time zones. So Sharp Analytics, I think. So what is it? Sharpfootballanalysis.com is the website if you want to check it out. They actually even provide you a full schedule grid that is color coded with days, locations, and they've got it formatted so you can use it as your phone background, which I think is really cool. I don't do it, but I think it's really cool. One of my favorite charts that they produce actually speaks directly to this. It measures the amount of rest days. So what they do is they go through the NFL schedule and they evaluate, okay, week 1, Washington Commanders obviously playing the New York Giants. Everybody's at the same amount of rest days. Boom. That's a zero. There's no plus or minus there. But now we go to week 2. And let's say the week 2 opponent is the Detroit Lions. And the Washington Commanders play the New York Giants on Sunday. The Detroit Lions play, the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football. Then the Washington Commanders would have a +1 in that category. So if you talk about like last year in general, the Washington Commanders had one game where they had one more day of rest than their opponent. They played one game where they had 4 more days of rest than their opponent, and they played one game where they had 7 more days of rest than their opponent. That would be coming out of their bye week, right? Now, they also played a game where they had 1 fewer day of rest, 1 less day of rest than their opponent, 6 fewer days of rest than their opponent. So a team coming off of a bye, you assume, or maybe a Thursday night game. And then a game where they were 7 days, had 7 days fewer days of rest than their opponent. So probably, again, a bye or Thursday night game, right? Overall, the Commanders actually had -2 days of rest compared to the rest of their schedule. Now, again, you look at this, there's 3 games on the schedule where they had fewer days of rest, right? So that means the other 14 games, they either had more rest or the same amount. So is it egregiously unbalanced? Not necessarily. However, you look at some of these other teams, the Baltimore Ravens, for example, they had 1 game where they had 1 more day of rest, 2 games where they had 3 more days of rest, 1 where they had 4 more days of rest, and 1 where they had 7 more days of rest. They had 2 games, the Baltimore Ravens did, where they had a lesser amount of recovery time than their opponents. Each of those 2 games, 1 day less time of recovery than the rest. So could you say the Baltimore Ravens had a little bit more of an advantageous schedule given their rest day differences? Absolutely. +16 in the net rest edge for the Baltimore Ravens. So that's, again, that's a Sharp Football Analysis chart. One of my favorite charts. It just kind of shows exactly what we're talking about here in this mailbag question. Just the discrepancy in the scheduling. Look, I've never had to sit down and make an entire 32-team NFL schedule, so I'm not going to go super deep into criticizing it. But yeah, there's certainly some discrepancies in there, as pointed out. We have a question about fantasy football values. Not going to have time to get to that today, but we will save that for a later mailbag episode. Fantasy football will become a topic that we will talk about. But coming up next, we're going to talk about a potential free agent that could be reuniting with Adam Peters in Washington. And we're going to talk about some football terminology. It's clarifying a little bit of football terminology for everybody out there so that we're all talking on the same page. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up today's mailbag episode of Locked On Commanders with a couple of questions, couple of things going. One going about the roster, one going about football terminology. To wrap it up here, Insider Merle came through and said, will Washington bring in Drake Jackson in for a physical to see if he's worth bringing into the team? And so first and foremost, I don't know. I don't know if the Commanders are going to bring in Drake Jackson, but for those of you who don't know, Drake Jackson, second-round draft pick of the San Francisco 49ers in 2022, recently released by the team, citing a failed physical. He's 24 years old, just turned 24 in April, played collegiately at USC. So not a UCLA guy, but a Southern California guy. And obviously Adam Peters was the assistant general manager of the San Francisco 49ers in 2022 when Drake Jackson was initially drafted. So 2022 second round pick of the 49ers, like I said, knee injury. He suffered a knee injury, Drake did, in 2023 that caused him to miss all but 8 games. So he played in 8 games in 2023, missed the rest of the 2023 season, missed all of the 2024 season because of that same injury. And then a failed physical caused him to be released this month. Now, according to his representatives and even him himself, potentially, not a quote, but just saying he seems pretty confident that he will be ready for training camp this year, just not ready to go through like the OTA process and all that stuff. He's got 6 career sacks in his 2 NFL seasons. Again, remember, rookie year 2022, 3 sacks, 23 through 8 games, had 3 sacks. So it was obviously on a career pace at that point in time. Got injured and missed 2024. So this will be his 4th year in the league, but 3rd year playing in the league if he is indeed healthy and ready to go. So 6 career sacks. Again, you got the Adam Peters connection. So, you know, the connection there is pretty clear. Second round pick, obviously the talent, raw talent tools are there. You know, look here, the thing about Drake Jackson, I would say, is this: if Adam Peters were to bring him in, all you can do is support it, right? Because he knows him better than I do. He knows him better than anybody else on this program does. If he doesn't bring him in, there's a reason for it. I'm not saying he's a bad kid or a bad guy or nobody else should sign him, but it's either, if you're sitting in Adam Peters' chair, I know Drake, I know what he brings, I like what we have better. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of guys on this roster already. It's a very heavy position group. Now, again, depending on how long Drake is out there, you never know. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but injuries happen, things like that. I wouldn't be surprised. I would, if you like forced me to have an opinion, I would believe that they would probably at least talk to Drake Jackson. In fact, by now, because he was released a couple weeks ago, they probably have spoken to Drake Jackson. It's just a matter of, you know, when is he going to be healthy? Because at the end of the day, you sign him today, he can't practice till training camp. He's just going to be sitting on his butt, and everybody's going to be wondering why you brought him in the first place. So you let him continue to rehab, monitor his progress, and then if he's ready for training camp, then that's when you maybe bring him in. But certainly wouldn't be against it. You know what I mean? He's another player with a lot of potential. And again, was on a career trajectory for sacks, was on pace for 6 sacks the season that he ended up getting hurt. And for a guy that never played more than 40% snap share on defense, you don't want to shake a stick at that. Steven came through. I was wondering if you had any info on offensive packages. I'm always at a loss when people say a 12 personnel package or 22 personnel. I don't know what that means. Is there a website or something that explains it? Steve, I'm glad you asked this question because we talk about this on this show. I try to always clarify just to be clear, but don't always do the greatest job. And of course, somebody else out there has the exact same question. So when you're talking about these personnel packages and these numbers, 12 personnel, 11 personnel, 22 personnel, the first digit refers to the amount of running backs on in the formation. So if it's 12, it's 1 running back. The second digit is the amount of tight ends in the formation. So if it's 12, it's 1 running back, 2 tight ends. 22, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. 20 personnel, 2 running backs, no tight ends, so on and so forth, right? You can get crazy. 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends. So, and typically, on average, right, you've got 5 offensive linemen and a quarterback. So you've got 6 other players. So if you've got 12 personnel, you got one running back. You get your offensive lineman, 5 players, quarterback, that's 6 players, one running back, 7, 2 tight ends, that's 9. That leaves you 2 to make the 11-man formation. Means you have 2 wide receivers, right? Now, of course, you got heavy sets and eligibles and all that stuff, but at least it's eligible players, because even if you have an eligible lineman, you might have 6 linemen on the field, but one of them is eligible. He's actually going to be considered a tight end. So it would be 12 personnel. It's just one of those tight ends might be an eligible offensive lineman. So hopefully that clarifies it just a little bit. Now, again, within 12 personnel, 22, like you've got, spread, trips, you've got all kinds of other stuff that, we talk about at a later date, but that, at least from the number, the nomenclature identification, that is what it is. The first digit amount of running backs in the formation, second digit amount of tight ends in the formation. But some resources, if you are interested in learning more about the game of football and you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know, NFL.com actually has a glossary that can help you learn even more about the game. NFL.com also, NFL operations, I should say, actually has like almost like an introductory class, which if you watch football every weekend, some of that stuff, you're gonna be like, yeah, I already know that, thanks. But you never know, you might learn something in there that you don't know. YouTube, Locked On Commanders is on YouTube. It's a pretty good resource for finding information. If you search on YouTube, NFL personnel packages explained, you'll actually find a lot of really good videos to help you out there. Pro Football Focus is always a really good one. And then again, Sharp Football Analytics, or analysis, I should say, what we were talking about earlier with the schedule measuring and all that stuff, another very good site. So that is a very good question. I'm glad you asked it, because again, if one person has that question, somebody else out there has that question. And I always want you guys to be clear on everything we're talking about. So that's going to wrap up this mailbag episode. In our next episode of Locked On Commanders, we are going to be talking about the official schedule. No leaks, no rumors, everything official from the Commanders or from the NFL, whichever we get it from first. That will go 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, Wednesday night, May 14th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're planning to go live. So come back through there. Might wait till like 8:05 just to let the schedule fully release and all that stuff. But in the meantime, if you have any more questions or comments, topics you want to talk about, all you have to do is text them to me. To text them to me, become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Not only are you going to influence the show by submitting your questions, submitting your topics for conversation, you're also going to get texts from me, information, analysis, insight, and inside info that you don't get on the show. It goes beyond the show. So again, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to become an insider. Today, we've already got more than a few this week signing up. So welcome to all of our new insiders. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino drop all kinds of sick knowledge. They're on my podcast rotation, so make sure they're on yours. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day. Thanks for coming through on a consistent basis like you do, everydayers especially. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.